Today we're going to talk about a very common phenomenon that occurs that gets in the way of our ability to listen in and trust ourselves, and that is digital noise. Get yourselves ready. I'm Mory, Intuitive Life and Leadership Guide, author of Higher Self, and my purpose is to remind you that every answer you seek exists within you and that it is time to return to self-trust. Look, I often, when I was served content like this that was like, hey, maybe social media isn't the best thing for your brain, I would turn away from it because there was a part of me, one, that intuitively knew that might be true, but two, didn't want to give it up. So I just want to start by saying I'm not asking anyone to give anything up. I just want to give you information, because if you're on this journey of self-trust, what's equally as important as learning how to trust yourself is to be really aware of any of the obstacles or impediments that are getting in the way of you learning how to listen in. Now, if you've been following me and watching my videos, you know we talk a lot about the internal system that makes it hard to trust ourselves, which is fear and anxiety. But today we're going to talk about the largest external system that makes it hard to listen in, which is digital noise or social media. Now, the two things are actually really interlinked. You know this better than I do, and there's experts who can talk about it better than me, but I will summarize it very quickly, which is that the algorithms of social media are designed to play on our internal fears and anxieties. So think about social and digital noise as a factor that's amping up the volume on all of those anxious behaviors, all those anxious thoughts, all of our tendencies that tend to fear things. Not every piece of content is like that. Look, my feed is full of Funny or Die content, for example, right? Like a lot of the content we consume is hilarious and joyful. All right, I want to give you a little bit of research and science. So I'm going to put on my white lab coat. I am in no way a doctor or a researcher. I am going to cover this in the most broad terms just to give you a sense of how this actually affects our brains. So there has been a ton of research done around the effects of social media. There's been films and documentaries and articles written about this. You could find them very easily. One of the greatest themes of this research and these articles is around the link between social media use and cognitive overload. Cognitive overload just meaning the brain becoming overwhelmed and overloaded and either going into fight or flight or having paralysis in decision making, that our brains are so overloaded they're not able to function at their optimal capacity. This, to someone who teaches intuition, means that it also does not create the space to listen in. Because here's the thing about your intuitive wisdom. It whispers. It's not shouting. So we have to find a way, if cognitive overload is here, to create cognitive stillness or mental clarity. I always say that intuition breaks in those moments of silence where our brain isn't constantly looping around all the things we're worried about or afraid of. But when our brain is grounded, settled enough that we can hear this more subtle whisper. So if social media is creating cognitive overload and we are on the path to self-trust, we have to try to create cognitive stillness or mental clarity. But I want to give you some of the facts that have come out of this research. Exactly what is happening to your brain when you are dealing with or engaged in digital noise or social media. And this can be as innocent as sitting in the bathroom, scrolling through your Instagram feed. These implications that I'm about to share with you happen to any of us, no matter how we're engaging with social media content. So the research that was done usually has been on college students, exposing them to a ton of social media, and then taking that factor away and watching the difference in the way that the brain functions. And here are some of the things that have been found. The most important is that they're finding that participants in these studies, as I said, show a higher level of cognitive overload, which is leading to difficulty in making decisions. So because our brains are so operating up here at a frazzled state of overload, it's harder to know what to do, when to do it, and therefore we can go into decision-making paralysis where we just push that thing off to another day. Now, you all are watching this content because you want to live your best lives. And you know that when you want something, the best thing to do is focus on it and go after it. And if we're pushing our decision points out further to another day because we're overloaded, we are creating more space between us and the life we desire. So there's issue number one. Here's some of the things that happen to your brain when you are engaging in social media, according to these studies. One that I thought was so interesting is that our brain perceives every ping as a micro decision. So if there is a DM, a comment, or a like on your content, your brain is interpreting that ping as a moment where you have to make a decision. Do I reply? Do I like this back? Whatever the decision is, your brain is having to navigate multiple decisions, micro decisions simultaneously. The second thing that is so interesting is that our brains are actually evolved to handle sequential information. So meaning that you are meant to be thinking something through from A to B and make a decision about that thing, right? Whatever that is. I'm going to go to the movies with friends. Do I want to go to the movie? Do I like this movie? Do I like these friends? Your brain is focusing on one stream of information to make a decision. What social media does is it creates parallel streams of information because content is micro-dosed, right? It's 90 seconds usually or less. And so you are looking at multiple streams of information in parallel, which is part of what causes the brain to feel overwhelmed because it's designed to make linear choices in a linear decision pattern. There's also this, what they call the response expectation loop, which is the pressure that we feel, whether it's conscious or subconscious, to be in reactive or response mode when we're engaging in social media. So as passive as we think we are, even for people who are just scrolling, there is a pressure system that goes, I am taking this in. Is there an expectation of a reaction or a response? And that is another factor, if we're loading in the brain, that's loading into this cognitive overload. I thought this was fascinating, but the research is finding that context switching, what I just talked about, going from one topic to the other so quickly, is actually affecting working memory. Moving between multiple streams of information and decision points and emotions taxes the internal memory system and it impairs retention. And what studies are showing is that it can take 20 to 25 minutes to fully refocus on something after an interruption. So think about, again, back to the linear brain, if we're supposed to be following one stream of consciousness, but now we are following parallel storylines, what's happening is we are constantly being interrupted. Our brain isn't able to retain. Our memory function is being overtaxed, and therefore our focus is really affected. It takes up to 25 minutes to refocus, and that's a lot of gymnastics we're asking our brains to do. All right, I could go on and on. I just want to share one more, which is around the emotional processing of content on social media. Think about how I just talked about the linear brain. This also applies to emotions. Think about how you are, back to this movie context, going to think about going to the movies with your friends. There is an emotion you're anticipating there. Hopefully it's joy. Hopefully it's fulfillment, it's connection. So your brain is ready. Your emotional system is ready for that kind of connection. And hopefully it's met with the right response that what it anticipated it was going to get, it gets. And so that whole process is a fulfilling, happy, joyous experience. And our brain and our emotional system is able to anticipate that and take that in. Now think about yourself scrolling for a second. I want you to actually think about all the different emotions that you might be experiencing in a 15-minute social media scrolling session. 1 minute you're getting served a cute puppy video, oh, how sweet. The next minute we see our favorite stand-up comic say something so hilarious, oh my God, we're laughing. All of a sudden we see a terrorizing image from the news. Then we see something that makes us feel angry. Then all of a sudden we're served with content that makes us feel grief or touches the sad part of our emotional body. All of the prism of emotion that is supposed to be given time and space to feel, experience, process, think through, these are intense emotions, is shrunk down to 1 minute increments. And so what we're asking our emotional body is to process multiple emotions simultaneously, constantly. Guess what happens to your emotional body? It also gets overloaded. It also begins to not be sure what emotions to feel, where to pause, what to even make of what you're feeling, because you're on to the next emotion so quickly. And it makes it harder to trust our feelings. So when we talk about self-trust, it's not just about your intuition. It's about your feelings, your emotions, trusting your emotions have information in them. And when we're constantly being asked to navigate multiple emotions in a 15-minute time period, it's hard to trust which emotion is really asking for our attention or what we need to be processing. And this is part of not just the cognitive overload, but the emotional and spiritual overload that's happening when we're navigating social media. Are you convinced yet? I am not going to overload you with any more cognitive overload, with any more data. I just wanted to give you a sense of what's actually happening neurologically, physiologically in the body and in the mind when we talk about something like cognitive overload or mental noise getting in the way of self-trust. So if you're convinced, and I have you, hopefully the next question that comes up is, what do I do about it? How do I use this information to make a decision for myself that allows me to just get a little closer to mental stillness, a little closer to allowing my system a break so that I can actually listen in instead of be overwhelmed? That's a great question. I want to tell you guys that I don't know if I've said this before, if you follow me, but as a teacher and a guide, I never ask anyone to do anything I haven't done first, because I believe it's my job to walk down the path, see the pothole and the tree that's fallen in the path, and be able to come back and say, hey, heads up, there's going to be a pothole there and a tree here. Let me tell you the best way, or help you decide the best way to navigate those obstacles. So I want you to know that I myself am coming to you after a multi-week social media break because I tried the very things I'm about to ask you to do. So I'm not telling you to do something I wouldn't do myself. Now, if you're intrigued about how to create the mental stillness so you can get back to self-trust, there's 3 things that you can do as soon as you're done watching this video to start to explore this path. The first thing you can do, and just do this today, pay attention to how you feel as you scroll. Pay attention to your emotions. Pay attention to what percentage of your emotions feel lighthearted or fulfilled or inspired, and what percentage of you feels drained, fearful, or anxious. If you notice that as you're scrolling, those difficult feelings are more pronounced than the positive feelings, that's information for you right there. Just pay attention to how you feel. You can also pay attention to how you feel after you've put your phone down. Pay attention to whether you feel energized or drained, whether you feel positive or negative, whether you feel hopeful or hopeless. Just pay attention to the way you feel after you've engaged with social media, because awareness is the most transformative tool we have. When you become conscious of something, that is the only way that you will then build a roadmap to change that thing. So just start with awareness. That's all I'm asking you to do. You don't have to delete Instagram off your phone. But if that awareness creates in you a desire to make a change because you notice the negative experience is outsized or it's causing you to suffer, and you love yourself enough to know that you don't deserve to suffer or be anxious or fearful, and let me just say that again, you are worthy of not feeling anxious, fearful. You are worthy of not suffering. So when you know that in your system, after you've paid attention to how this makes you feel, step 2 is about baby steps. Baby steps can look really simple. It can be a decision to not pick up your phone for the first hour you're awake. In fact, science does show that our brains require that first hour between sleep and being fully awake to just recalibrate itself, to prepare itself to receive everything that it needs to during the waking hours. And that when we fill our brains with that cognitive overload of our phones, our brains don't get the space to do that calibration. And so we're already going into our day miscalibrated, misaligned. So baby step number 1 can be, I'm not going to pick up my phone for the first hour of the day, or I'm not going to be on social media for the last hour of the day. Baby step number 1. The baby step I took was, I am going to remove Instagram and TikTok, those are my 2, off of my phone for 7 days. And I am going to see this as an experiment. I'm going to take them off my phone and just notice a couple things. 1, what do I do with the time? How much time opens up? And how do I feel? You guys, I count myself as pretty self-aware. I was shocked with how much time I had. I was shocked at how much I was mindlessly scrolling in between opening the fridge to take the chicken out to make dinner and taking the frying pan out. Like, that should take you 10 seconds. It was taking me minutes because I was mindlessly scrolling in between. So the amount of time that opened up for me was mind-blowing. But also what I started to notice right around day 3 was I just felt calmer. That my parasympathetic nervous system, the part that grounds us and makes us calm, was more easily accessed and activated. And I loved that feeling. So I extended that to another week and then 3 weeks. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I am saying that a baby step is an experiment. So just make a commitment to yourself after you've noticed if social is overwhelming you cognitively, and do that one thing for a few days, and then again, pay attention to how it makes you feel. The last thing you can do if you are curious about changing your relationship to social media to create more mental stillness so that you can trust yourself more is to get really honest with yourself about the purpose social media plays in your life. What is it you're trying to get out of it? Now, if you're watching this video, my guess is a lot of you go to social media for inspiration, for tips and tools for how to continue to evolve and be the best version of yourself. I love it. That means that hopefully your feed is full of things that make you feel good. But pay attention if even those kinds of self-help videos are making you feel like you don't have the answers yourself. So an over-reliance on inspirational content, on tools and tricks to advance ourselves, an over-reliance on that can also still create cognitive overload and make us believe that someone else has the answers that we don't have. But just be honest with yourself. What am I trying to get out of this? And make sure that you are heightening your awareness to understand where you've hit your limit. If you're here to get joy, have I gotten my joy, and is it now eking over into being drained? If I'm here to get inspiration, have I been inspired and now it's eking over into over-reliance on other people's opinions? Watch that barometer. When you're clear on what you're in it for, then you can be more clear when you've gotten what you want, and then you can set it down. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. I am actually so curious about what you'll take from this and what you'll do. Maybe you can leave that in the comments below. If you liked this video, please subscribe for more videos and like and share my channel so that more people can have access to this mission of learning how to turn inward and trust yourself so that you have the freedom to live the life you desire. I'll see you again next week.